Judicial reform plays a central role in the efforts of countries around the world to strengthen the rule of law. The former NBA president, Mr. Paul Usoro, speaks about the current reforms and solutions.
Well, when you're speaking about reforms, it's multifaceted. You can examine it from different angles. So it really depends on which angle you're examining it from. You can speak in terms of the outputs of the judges, and if you're talking about the outputs of judges, once upon a time we didn't have that measurement of saying you would determine the outputs based on the number of judgments that judges deliver. But now you have that standard, and that in some ways is a reform. You could also look at a reform in terms of talking about the independence of the judiciary, for example. That's something that several people talk about, sometimes without really understanding what we are talking about. We're talking about independence. We could talk about independence from two perspectives. One is independence of thought. In other words, that the judge should be free to make its determination without being influenced by a third party. And then, of course, there is also the independence in regard to the process for even the appointment of the judges and the maintenance of the judiciary. Are these tied somewhere? Is there if I might borrow it from somewhere, a quid pro quo of some sorts? Those are issues that you look at when you're talking about reform.
What's your take on our current reform strategies?
There are things that could be changed. I believe that we could utilize technology much better. That would greatly help as far as justice administration is concerned.
What's your opinion? Is Nigeria's integrity, capacity in talking about the judiciary in doubt?
Well, I'll put it this way. Like any institution and any Nigerian institution, you may have some bad eggs, but that doesn't necessarily qualify the entire eggs. It doesn't necessarily make everybody to be bad. There might be some that are not doing their jobs, their assignments right. There might be some that are bent. That's not impossible. And that is why there is also a process for having to get them. If anybody has any hard facts in regard to any bent judge, the thing to do is to report it to the NJC.
How would you say Nigerians perceive the justice system in the country?
Perception is not always the fact. Sometimes perception can be wrong. And yes, something needs to be done to correct that perception. But let me also, and to buttress the points, I'll give you an interesting story. You know, I was the president of the Nigerian Association. I conducted an election for at the close of my tenure to bring in the new set of people. And of course, there was generally that hoopla which more or less trails the Bar Association election. Different people believing that this was fixed, that there are certain things that were done. But one of the things I can tell you is I was determined to conduct an election that was clean, fair, and I did not interfere with the process. And I felt sufficiently confident about it. When there was that outcry by some people about it, I actually approached the top 4 accounting firms and requested each of them. No, there was one that was excluded for some reason. But the other ones, I went to them and I requested that they should come in and conduct audits of the election. I was happy to subject my process to the audits, for an audit. And you know what? Because of the noise because of the way we lawyers branded ourselves and how much we talk down ourselves. Each of those accounting firms told me they were not coming, that they don't want anything to do with lawyers, that we talk too much, and before you know what's happening, they're going to end up in the FCC, and they would not want to touch anything about us. So sometimes this perception also comes from the way some of us actually talk down our profession, the way we talk down the courts, the way we talk down everything relating to legal, to justice administration. Yes, there are things that could be done that would improve the process, but it's not the worst institution that you have as far as Nigeria is concerned.
The police are partners in the justice system. How are they doing?
Maybe that's actually where you should be talking about reform, because having to institute a reform in the police is perhaps something that we need. You could talk about the reform from the perspective of justice administration, but justice administration is only perhaps one aspect of policing. There's the other large aspect of it. Of course, justice administration is a core part, a very major part. But you know, policing, you're talking about security, safety of lives and property. And the fact that we are where we are right now in Nigeria suggests that we really need to look at what would make our police system to work, that would make it possible for people to travel from Abuja to Kaduna, for example, by road, and they're not afraid that they might get kidnapped and they might lose their lives. I remember when I did my youth course so many years ago, and I could drive at night from Kaduna to Mina, going through Kontagora at night, and I would be safe, I would be secure. I could drive from Kaduna to Maiduguri, and I would not have any challenges or issues. I could drive from Lagos to Akwa Ibom, and I would not have problems. But these days, you hardly find people having to take road transport, for example. And even if you're not traveling, at your home, you may not feel particularly very safe. So the issue of the police goes beyond the partnership with lawyers, with partnership with justice administration. But of course, you see, if there's a knot loose somewhere in that system, then it becomes very difficult for you to have everything together in other aspects. In other words, you can't have it right as far as partnering in justice administration is concerned, and then you have it wrong as far as safety, security, policing is correct, because one fits the other in any case. So yes, we do need to have a look at that in a holistic sense and see what needs to be done.
The correctional system, there seems to be a lot going on. The recent jailbreaks, and of course we know how the number of inmates are there still awaiting trial. What is lacking in solving that problem?
Again, it gets to it's the different parts of what we have just spoken about now, with what we've discussed. Why are you having so many jailbreaks lately? You find that it's the instability in the system. You find that it's the root cause is more the insecurity. Maybe you find there's some distemper in the society, and that gives rise to some of these incidents. Sometimes when you're hearing of a jailbreak, it is because there have been something of a riot or some some discontent in the community, and then the people decide, as part of their attempts at showing discontent, to break the jail and let out the inmates and the prisoners. That's still a factor of the security, the general insecurity that we have. It speaks to the unfortunate state of instability that we have in Nigeria, which we truly need to do something about. Now, that is one aspect of it. Now, you're talking about that there are a number of inmates awaiting trial. Again, we have talked about the challenges or the problems that delay justice administration. That, again, is the byproduct of some of those delays, some of those challenges that you have in the courts, where you're not able to go through the process fairly fast. Sometimes also because there are adjournments, the lawyers are not, or the prosecutors. It also happens, a lot of the instances, that the prosecutors are not doing their job well. They're not ready, actually, and that happens. But there have also been instances when the inmates are taken to the courts, and maybe the courts is actually busy with some of these political matters that they must complete within a specific time. And unfortunately, it used to be that criminal matters had precedence over every other thing. But now you find that the political matters tend to have precedence over every other matter, including even the criminal matters. So you find some of the inmates, they're brought and they're taken back, they're brought and they're taken back, because the courts, they're dealing with some of the matters of, as you would say, matters of urgent state attention, and that more or less takes the time. So there are all of those kinds of issues. It's not as if we do not know the causes of these things. I think what is lacking is the will to address them. And people actually sitting down and deciding that we're going to correct some of these things. It's that will. If we have the will, then we can sort them out.